Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to our little spot of light, our Cantinho de Luz. Tonight is the second Monday of the month. Therefore, we have our meetings in English. And tonight we have a first here that's not happened for a very long time in English meetings. We're going to have someone that's going to speak in English, talk in English to us for the first time. Lucas is going to be here. He's going to read a message for us in a few minutes and make a few comments, and feel free to speak for 45 minutes, for an hour if you want to, if you can. If not, whenever you're ready, just we're very grateful for your help. And before we do that, though, we're going to have do our initial prayer, and after that, after Lucas speaks, I'm going to be back here to keep following on our study on the gospel according to Spiritism. And so if we want, we can close our eyes, and so that we can try to reach even deeper within ourselves, where we can look for that flame that some of us call God, some of us call Father, some of us call Mother. God's the one that created us, the one that gave us life, that gives us life, and that will always give life to us, so that we can not only enjoy the opportunity to be living, but also the chance, the honor, and the duty to serve, to try to make this place that we live in a better place for every single one of us. So, dear God, we'd like to thank you for the love that you've given us, that you give us. Also, when you sent our dear Master and friend and brother Jesus to show to us how to live better lives. So it is with our hearts full of gratitude, full of love, that we reach out for you in search of harmony, of peace, and of happiness. So help us tonight, not only to understand the message, but also to feel the message, so that this message of love can transform us. May your love bless us, not only tonight, but always. So be it. So with this said, let's invite Lucas. He's going to read a message from the book Our Daily Bread, and he's going to say the title and the chapter number here for all of us.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It was not long ago that I read my first message here in Portuguese, and I remember the feeling that day, and it's just repeating itself. The same feeling today. My heart is beating really fast. I'm sweating a lot, but I feel ready because I know I have all of you here with me, supporting me, helping me, and I really appreciate that. So, as Mackenzie said, the reading is from the book Our Daily Bread, which was psychographed by Chico Xavier, dictated by Emmanuel, and the chapter is 158, and the title is The Internal Government. There is always a passage from the Gospel, and today's message is, I beat my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. Paul, who said this was Paul in his 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 27. Then there's a comment by Emmanuel. In effect, the body is a miniature of the universe. It is indispensable, therefore, that we learn to govern it. As an earthly material representation of the spiritual personality, it is reasonable that each one of us be attentive to its needs. It is not that passive substance has acquired more power than the human will. However, it is imperative to recognize that the inferior tendencies are intent on extracting from us the power of control. It is important that each individual be alert as to his own government. The internal life, in some ways, resembles the life of a state. The spirit assumes the control, assisted by various ministries, such as that of reflection, knowledge, understanding, respect, and orderliness. Diverse and simultaneous thoughts represent good or bad pleas from the inner parliament. In the depth of each mind, extensive potential for progress and sublimation exists, claiming work. The supreme governor, which is the spirit in the cellular cosmos, issues beneficial laws, but does not always mobilize the prosecuting organs of individuals' wills. The inferior zones then continue in their prior disorders, not caring about the renovating decrees that they do not adhere to or execute. When this anomaly occurs, the individual goes on to become a living enigma when not converted into a blind or perverse person. Whoever expects a healthy life without self-discipline is not far from a ruinous or total imbalance. It is necessary to install our individual personal government into every position in life. The fundamental problem is to observe a strong will towards ourselves and goodwill towards our fellow men. So, in this message, my reading from this message is basically, the way I understand it, is Emmanuel calling us to think about how we treat ourselves and our body. A lot of times, and it just came to my mind, we come here and we talk a lot about Jesus and everything he left us as teachings. But in this message, it really connected to me the way Emmanuel brings us to think about our body, the instrument that God gave us to fulfill whatever we accepted for this life, right? So how are we treating our bodies at this moment, right? Are we eating too much sugar in many cases, right? Are we going to the gym? Are we taking really good care of our body? Because in the end, our body is connected to our spirit, right? Emmanuel is very clear here when he says that the supreme governor, which is the spirit, so the spirit governs the body, and they are connected, right? Through energy, right? We're all connected. And whatever we do with the spirit, the way we think, the way we carry our lives, this is transmitted to our bodies too, right? So we're talking about sugar, material stuff, and how we take care of the material body. But we also need to be aware that taking care of our mind, what we think, will also be transmitted to our bodies, right? So taking care of this instrument, it's not only about going to the gym or not eating a lot of sugar. How are we at work with our coworkers? How do we think at work? How do we think at home, right? When someone does something to us, how do we, think and process that information? Do we send bad thoughts to that person, right? And in our daily lives, we need to be aware that whatever we think, whatever we do, will be transmitted to our body. So Emmanuel is inviting us here to think about that, the way we connect to our body through our spirit, right? As spiritists, we know that the body is just a piece of matter. It will stay here. And we say this a lot, right? Oh, the body will stay and the spirit will go and continue living. But we need to understand that we need to care for this body, right? Because, like I said in the beginning, is the instrument that God gave us to fulfill everything that we planned for ourselves, right? So we need to understand that the body that we have, the problems that we have with our bodies, right, can be a result, and in most of cases is a result of our thoughts, of what we planned for ourselves, right? So the, Emmanuel invites us here today to think about that, right? So what I like to do is, I once read this in a book, and I think it's a great way, when you catch yourself, see yourself doing something, thinking of something that is unhappy, not so good. It's basically, I like to put myself, think of there is another version of Lucas by my side, and I like to have a conversation with this version of another Lucas, right? It was like, is this the best option for you? Is this really good for you? Why are you doing this to your body, to yourself? Why are you thinking like this? This way I can coach on my own, coach myself on how to be better, right? Emmanuel is very clear here when he said it's necessary to install our individual personal government into every position in life, right? Every position. But in my opinion, the way we are now, where we are at right now in our evolution process, it's very hard, at least for me, to do this in every single position in life, right? I still have bad thoughts. I'm still not perfect, but the intention is to become perfect, right? So if I do this exercise, right, to see myself, look at myself outside of my body, and have these conversations, at least I'm coaching myself on improving, right? So, and I think this is a great example of what Emmanuel wants us to do here, right? He's inviting us to really look carefully at ourselves, at our bodies, at our mind, and make sure that we are doing good to us so we can fulfill whatever we agreed to do and accomplish here on earth. So this is it. Hope you liked it. And Mac, all yours.
Very nice. You're awesome. From now on, it's gonna be you. I saw your shit. Good to see you.
So I apologize. Too many small things to do, and then you lose track of it. So tonight, like I said before, we're gonna keep going with the study that we do about the gospel according to Spiritism, and we are on chapter 13. And chapter 13 is, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. That's a saying from Jesus. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about items 5 and 6 of this chapter, which is the widow's mite. I created this PowerPoint presentation based on this chapter. Sara was here on Saturday. She will hear what I said in English. Of course, things will probably be a little different, but the idea is quite actually the same, because it was inspired by this item. Because I knew that I was going to be here on Monday to talk about this item. So for Saturday, I had to prepare topic, so I decided to prepare the same topic in Portuguese and in English. So here I am. Tonight we're talking about the items 5 and 6, the widow's mite, with this title of my PowerPoint called Higher Merit. So, having said that, as I was reading this, and as I was thinking about this item, or these two items, I came across a book also written by Emmanuel through the psychography of Chico Xavier that I was not able to find if this book has already been translated to English. The name of the book in Portuguese, with a direct translation, not adaptation or anything, is called Divine Justice, which is a book that's very, very interesting. And as I said on Saturday, for a little while, I recorded with Shusara some of the chapters. So we recorded the reading of the chapter, and then we talked about a few of the chapters. We never got to this chapter. I think we went up to chapter 5 or 6. This is chapter 8 of this book called Divine Justice. What is this book? This book is part of a series of books like Emmanuel and Chico did. Divine Justice, in Portuguese, Justiça Divina. It's part of a series of books where, during a few years, Chico Xavier, together with some people in the Espírita Center that he was part of, they studied the main books of Spiritism. For example, the Spirit's book, which Lucas had here, the Gospel According to Spiritism, which is the one we're studying tonight, but also, and I don't have the version in English, also the book called Heaven and Hell, which this version is Céu e Inferno. Also, they had one about the Medium's book. So they had like these 4 or 5 books where they grabbed a few topics of the book, and then Emmanuel would give a message about that topic. And then they would go on to discuss and to do some study on that specific passage. So, as I was, like I said, reading this passage and researching and reading other stuff, I came across this message number 8 from Divine Justice, which studies this book, Heaven and Hell. Doesn't study the whole book. It only gets like a few topics here and there, and it would, I mean, how much time would it take to study one book with other books? It would be like thousands of books just to study this one. So he grabs just a few pieces here and there, and then he goes on to make a comment on that specific topic, the same way that Lucas did here, right? He grabs a small piece of the Bible, reads that piece of the Bible, and make a comment on that. That's the way Emmanuel does these explanations or these thoughts. So, what we're doing tonight is I'm going to get this specific topic that was taken from the book Heaven and Hell. I'm going to put the topic right here. It's just one very brief sentence. And then I'm going to go into what Emmanuel wants us to think about, that specific part. And then I'm going to put together, as I'm going, parts of what this chapter or these items of the Gospel according to Spiritism talk about on the widow's mite. One little thing. In Portuguese, even in Portuguese, if we say of course in every language, but if we say this specific word out of context, a lot of people will not know what it is. So I'm going to say it in Portuguese. Óbolo. Nobody uses this word. No one uses this word nowhere. There's only one place where this word is used, is when we talk about this passage of the Gospel. O óbolo da viúva. It's the only place. I've never heard anyone saying this word, using this word in a regular conversation. Never. It is in the dictionary, but it's one of those words that we never use. Like, there's another word in Portuguese called canícula. Did you guys ever hear this word before? Canícula? See? It's a word that came from France, from Old French. It's very used in French. People in France use this word. It's written with an E at the end, but it's exactly the same word. And it means that something that's very, very, very hot. Usually talking about the weather, talking about how warm the weather is, so you can use canícula. But nobody uses in Portuguese, right? But it is there in the dictionary, and you'll find in some books. Same thing with óbolo. Nobody uses it. In this passage, in English, it was translated as the widow's mite. I've never heard anyone using the word mite in English, which is óbolo, which kind of the same thing. What is mite? Is óbolo. What is óbolo? Right? It's that kind of thing. Right? So a mite is something that's very small. It's a tiny donation. You're giving something. You're giving away. It's like an offering, but it's not necessarily a big offering. It's an offering. So we usually relate to something that's small, that you're giving that is very small. So the passage is called the widow's mite. Same idea. Just wanted to throw in some culture around languages here, because that's one of my passions in life. So we're going to start with this book. I highly, and I cannot stress that enough, I highly recommend reading not only this passage, but maybe all the items, because the item that I'm going to put up there, let's hope that it's working. If there's someone online, hopefully people are seeing this. So, as you see, it's the 12th, right? I left it in Portuguese. It shouldn't have that little O on the side there. So, from the book Heaven and Hell, Part 1, Chapter 7, item number 12, which is entitled well, I don't know exactly how they translated this to English, because I don't have the English version here with me, but it's the penal code of the future life. So it is like what will happen in a future life in terms of if we had a constitution. So it's what Kardec kind of does here in this passage. And then I really like this item here. And that's the item number 12 is the item where Emmanuel will talks about in the book Divine Justice, as I mentioned before. And I'm going to read it. And you see these colors? So these colors are mine, of course. I put these in colors so that I want to highlight some stuff. But you see the italics at the end? The italics at the end are from the book. I didn't put those things in italics. So if we read the book, in Portuguese or in English or in French, those italics are in the book. So Kardec wanted us to pay attention to that. I wanted to pay attention to more than just the last part for this lecture. So I'm going to read it, and then we're going to go piece by piece to get where we want to go. There is no absolute or uniform rule as to the nature and duration of the punishment. The only general law is that every wrong will be punished, and every meritorious act will be rewarded according to its worth. That's what it said. I'm just reading it. But now let's go part by part or piece by piece, because there is some stuff there that I really like it, that I find it very, very, very interesting. And the first one is one thing that always bothers me, is when, and especially in Spiritism, not in the writings itself, but in us, that either didn't understand it completely, we're still not mature enough to understand it, we're still not mature enough to really get it, to really like feel it and really like embrace it, is that sometimes when we say, for example, and we've heard this before maybe a few times, said when we see a person going through a difficulty, then we say that, and then we used to say it more, I guess, but oh, if the person will do that, then the person will reincarnate with this problem. Oh, the person is suffering this, so the person was that in a previous life. Or if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, that will happen. And then we start like saying very specific things about how people will suffer because of what they do. As if we have it's better than a crystal ball, right? Because crystal balls are kind of, you never know exactly, but it's better because we are better. So when we say something, it's going to happen because we know it all. And do we know it all? I don't think we do, but that's how we act. That's how so we look at a person, we look at something, and then we tend to say what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and we judge the situation, because of course, we are all judges, right? Then we judge, but we are worse than judges. We are the guy that goes there and put the person in jail and condemn the person, and that's it. It's done deal. Nobody can appeal. It's that. And it's done. And that's how we usually do things. When we see something on the internet, we see a report on TV, we see something happening outside, someone comes with an issue for us and it comes to explain or to say something, then we come with either a big solution or a big problem or a big, like, oh, this is what it is if you don't do this. And that's what I like about what Kardec starts saying here. He says, there is no, that's how he starts it. There is no absolute or uniform rule for what's going to happen when we do what we do. As to the nature and duration of the punishment. So what is he saying? He's going to say it later. That once you do something, something will happen. But that's part of nature. So that's what he's saying. The only general law, he says it right after, is that if you do something, something will happen. He specifies it, right? He separates in two groups. If you do something bad, then something bad will happen. If you do something good will happen. But that's nature. There's nothing that we can do about it. What he's saying, though, in the beginning is that we should not be judges. We should not be condemning anyone because we don't know what is happening. We know the surface. Sometimes we don't even know the surface. Sometimes we deem a person very good, and then but behind the surface, or the very thin surface, the person is doing only on a self-interest, only because he wants to take a profit, and we don't know. The other way around as well. We see something and we judge that the person is doing this because the person is bad or the person is selfish, and then all of a sudden you know a little bit more of the story, and then, oh my God, I was completely wrong because I didn't see the full picture. And that's what Kardec is trying to make us see here. We don't see the full picture. So let's not put ourselves in the position of judge and then be judged back. That's what Jesus taught us. Do not judge so that you don't be judged. So it is to me, it's very, very interesting the way he starts. And then he goes to, let's go to the red one and the green one. The only general law, and then he will explain that there's a general law. And what is a general law? General law is a law that doesn't matter what it is, where it is. It will always start. It will always happen because it is a law of nature. Everything, it doesn't matter. If I throw something up, it will go up and then it will go down. Doesn't matter where we are on Earth. If we're in space, it's different. It will not come down, but it will keep going because there is no other force to pull it back, like gravity happens here. So there are some laws that are it doesn't matter where we are. It will always happen. So that's why what he calls a general law. So he goes, every wrong will be punished. But who is to judge? Not me. He's not saying that it's me, that I am going to be the judge of the wrong of the others. He's only saying that the wrong will be punished. And every meritorious act, every act with good deeds will be rewarded. So, consequence, cause and effect. Cause and effect. But then, he adds this part at the end that he highlights for us. That's the green, the purple part. According to its worth. According to how much it is worth. According to how much it is valued. According to how much it is, if it values more or less than whatever it is. And when we talk about worth, we talk about, and then my question is, when I read this, what is worth? I mean, worth, we kind of know it. This book, because it's thicker, because it's heavier, because maybe the pages or the paper is a little different, is worth more maybe than this one that is a little thinner. But maybe, and we're talking about the worth or the value in terms of money, but maybe this book is worth more than this, or this one is worth more than this because this one has more notes or has more knowledge into it than this one, or the other way around. So worth is something that is not just because the thing itself is worth more, but because of how much we put the worth on that thing. So we see, for example, we buy a watch, right? And then because the watch has written on it Rolex, right? It's worth way more than one that's written Rollin, right? Because the name has a power. The name has a worth. And then you give more worth, or you put more worth into something that's based on what? Maybe on the interest of other people that buy it. Maybe on, I don't know, maybe just because of perception. And then we give worth to some stuff based on this specific perception. So, according to its worth. So, it is in the end kind of hard to weigh or to measure the difference in what Kardec is trying to say there. And I guess that's why Emmanuel, when he decided to write about this, he took this part to write, because he wanted to talk a little bit more about this worth and this meritorious act that he cites right there, that Kardec cites right there. And then that's where we're going to go to, not the whole message, but to a few pieces of that message from Divine Justice. And as I highly recommended reading the part in this book about this item there, part 1, chapter 7, item 12, or paragraph 12, I also highly recommend reading this. It's a very small message. It's maybe 1.5 page. That's called Higher Merit, which is the title of the PowerPoint. Chapter number 8. And that's where we're going to. And this is my free translation, since I had no translation to go on to. I got the Portuguese version, and I put there a direct and straight translation of it. Maybe people with more knowledge would choose better words or better way of saying it, but here it is. So let's talk about goodness. And what Emmanuel is going to do here, he is going to, and we are going to try to follow his thoughts. He's going to try to show us, or he's trying to show us, what is this idea of having this higher merit? What is worth more and what is worth less? Or not what is worth more, as we're going to see it right here. And I love this ending. This is the ending of the message. I really like this ending. Because Emmanuel, I'm always in love with the way he writes and the way he puts things into words, because he works with the words in a sense that kind of a little bit goes out of the ordinary and makes us, in very small words, but makes us, if we want to delve deeper and go and keep going and in finding stuff that he wants to say that are not written, but that's you can feel that it's there. So that's why sometimes it's hard to translate what he writes, because he writes in very small pieces, but he says a lot of stuff. So he says, he starts with all goodness. All goodness. He doesn't specify which is. All goodness. And then he says, whichever it is, just to make it even more clear. Just to make it just a little bit more clear. Any goodness, whatever goodness anyone does, that's how he starts. So he doesn't want to eliminate anything that someone does that it is good. Because what he's going to say it is all necessary. It is all important. We all should be doing it. That's how he starts. All goodness, whichever it is a blessed credit. So he uses there the word credit, which I kind of like it, because I think everybody understands what a credit is, right? We receive that, we have debts, and better if we have credit, right? And then we can cover our debts. So we all understand it, and he calls it blessed. So what is he saying? Whatever I do that it is good, it counts towards me. it counts, I have an account, then every piece of goodness that I do, it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter the amount, it doesn't matter how much, it doesn't matter if I did only once in my entire life, it doesn't matter. He doesn't want us to keep counting. He just says, if we do it, it will be a cha-ching in our account. We will receive a cha-ching and it will be there saved for us. And as I'm reading this, I remember Andre Lewis in the book No Solar, where he dies. He goes to a bad place because he was an indirect suicide. He killed himself without even knowing that he was killing himself because he drank too much, he did too much stuff. So he shortened his life in a few years, so he went to a bad place because he needed to expunge some of his things. Like we were saying before, all bad deeds will have a punishment. And it's not God that's punishing, it's a consequence of what I'm doing. So that's part of the beginning of the item, the talk here. But now we get to the point where he goes there, and then he starts like walking around, doesn't know what's going on, and it's suffering, until the day when he remembers that his mother once told him how to pray, and then he starts praying, and when he starts praying, all of a sudden, some people appear to him and then say, hey, welcome. Now you're ready to come because it comes from you. It doesn't necessarily come from the outside. But we were always here trying to get to you, but you wouldn't allow it because that's how you were. Now you opened it up and now you are going to be rescued. So he's brought out of this. And he goes out, and then one day he's talking to one of the guys that brought him out of there, and the guy explains to him, he says, look, you were never abandoned, and you were there. Your mother was always looking for you, but also because you helped a lot of people, sometimes without even wanting to help. You just wanted them to go away. But you helped them anyways. And you helped them for free. You just came and they came looking for a doctor. They couldn't pay. And then you decided to help them so that they would go away. But they, up to this day, they still pray for you. Thanking you for what you did. That's what Emmanuel is saying. It doesn't matter if I did it because I wanted to get rid of the others. It is a goodness towards the other. So it counts on me. What he's not saying here is how much it counts, but it does. What he wants us to understand with this very first sentence is, it does not matter. Now, I have not cited any time yet the widow's mite. That's when I'm going to cite the widow's mite. And if it's like in the Gospel according to Spiritism is like 8 sentences. It's a very short story, very short story. Jesus is outside the temple. You may all know the story. Jesus is outside the temple just watching people going in and out with the disciples. And he sees one man going in with a bunch of money, like sacks or bags of money, and then he puts the money there in the temple, like an offering. And then he sees this lady go in. That's a widow. And then she puts 2 coins. And these 2 coins are worth less than 1 cent. He looks at the disciples and say, in fact, that lady gave more than that man, because she gave out of what she didn't have, while she gave out of what he gave out of what is, it doesn't matter to him anymore, because he has so much that amount doesn't count for him. What I want to point out in this story is that, based on this, to that man, it doesn't matter. He gave it. We are the ones that judge him. But he gave it. So it counts for him. Maybe it doesn't count as much for her as what she is doing because of something else that Emmanuel will talk about later. But it counts. In us, when we see people donating or people giving something to something that we don't believe in, or that we think that we shouldn't be giving, or whatever, who am I to say? I'm just judging. And why? The person is donating, is giving. It doesn't matter if the person wants to get rid of it, just like André Luiz did. It doesn't matter. The person is doing it. If it's worth more or less, it's not for us to decide. It's not for us to say. It's not for us to judge and say, oh, you are giving, but see that other. No. Jesus is not judging them. He is making us see what is worth what. For us to think about how do we want to do things. So what he wants us to see is donate. Period. That's what he's saying. Give it. Do something. However you want to do it. But there's one way that's worth more. But it's up to you. It's not to me. But we tend to judge. And then we don't donate, or we donate less than the other person because, I donate and then I complain, or I donate and So that's one part of the widow's mite that I usually and often don't hear about, because we tend to praise the woman, and sometimes we even say bad things about the man. Oh, he's saying, but he is rich, so he can. Well, so what? If he is rich. If he's rich, he's rich. He can give more or less. It's his money. He does whatever he pleases with his money. I am not to be the judge. And I'm saying this for me to hear. I'm not saying for you guys. I'm saying this for me to hear. Because that's kind of nature. We tend to see it this way. Right? So, all goodness, whichever it is a blessed credit in favor of the one who practices it. So Emmanuel is saying, give it. Do the good. Do as much good as you can. However, and whichever, and whatever, the way you want to do it, do it. That's how he starts. But then he goes on. And he puts things in a scale for us to understand. Then he says, from crumbs that fall from our mouth, from our tables when we're eating bread, from crumbs, to wealth, to richness, given with love, there is an entire scale, an entire tape measure, an entire range of joy and of light. I can give crumbles and a person be satisfied. And I can give wealth and the person says, don't you have a little more? Right? So, but one thing that catches my eye in this saying is that when he says, if we remove this given with love from here, if we take it out, if we take that given with love out of the picture there, we can still read the whole sentence. Say, from crumbs to wealth, there is an entire scale of joy and of light. It doesn't break the sentence when we remove that part. Meaning that when we put that in, it gives us a little more insight on what he wants to say. He adds this given with love. So now he's departing from give it to whatever, however, whichever, do it, to, and then he jumps and says, okay, give it. But then, if you give it with love, then things start to get to a different level. It starts to jump up a little bit. That's when we start to see that merit, that worth that he was talking before, right? So an entire scale of joy and of light. And of course that when we're talking about spiritual growth, we may sometimes we may not see this thing happening right away, because some stuff that we do when we're talking about spiritual growth of people and of ourselves, it takes time for us to see results. Even with material things, it takes time sometimes for us to see results. But in spiritual life, it takes sometimes longer, because things are very tiny and small, just like growing up. Like I see a picture of myself when was taken a year ago. I can see the big difference from what I was to what I am now. But if I take a picture of myself yesterday and today, there's no difference. Although there needs to be a difference, otherwise I don't change, right? But we don't see. So with spiritual things, is that entire scale, it's like tiny things in tiny steps that for us to get to a certain point, it takes a little time. And that's why sometimes we tend to be a little disappointed or a little bit disencouraged because, I'm not feeling anything, it's taking too long. But how long did it take for us to become what we are today? For Lucas to become a good chef, right? For me to become whatever I am, for you guys to do what you... It takes time for us to go changing. So spiritually speaking, or morally speaking, is the same thing. When we do and when we give with love, then coming back to the main idea, it starts to be different than just give. Oh, I'm going to give it to you, so go away now. Now I'll give it to you. Come here. Give me a hug. It's a little different. It has a little different worth. The person will feel differently. I think maybe, I don't know, I can go back here. I think last month when I was here, it was last month. Last month when I was here, I was talking about these hidden misfortunes, and I told the story of this woman that is in the same chapter, item number 4, hidden misfortunes, and the woman that brings her daughter to donate with her in France at that time, and she was a very rich and very, people would know her, but she would dress very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, very humbly, exactly, thank you. Very humbly, instead of showing off her wealth, and then she would go out and donate stuff. And one day her daughter comes and asks her to donate something, and she says, but if I give something that I am donating to you, it's not you who are donating, I am donating. So you need to learn to do something for yourself to do to the others. And then she teaches her that it is something that we do. It's not that we take from others to give to you. So I'm just a messenger, I'm not anything in that sense. Although, like Emmanuel says, anything that I do is good and counts on me. If I want to do something, it's good. But we can make it worth more. And how am I knitting something to someone? Am I knitting with anger? Am I cooking? So I'm going to ask Lucas. Lucas cooks for us sometimes. Hope he's not cooking angrily because I'm going to eat it. I hope he's cooking with love and putting love into the food always. Yeah. So if we are knitting and we are angry, I'm still knitting something for someone, which is good, like Emmanuel said, but it's good for the others. Is it good for me? How much more goodness it brings to me when I do it with love. That's mainly the point where Emmanuel is trying to make here. And then we get to the last sentence of this chapter. And I put the other two there just for us to go to see in sequence. All goodness, whichever it is a blessed credit in favor of the one who practices it. From crumbs to wealth, given with love, there is an entire scale of joy and of light. And then he crowns it with this red sentence. Nevertheless, all goodness practice with sacrifice. That's where we enter in the widow's mite. All goodness practiced with sacrifice has a higher merit. Because now we got even more out of the comfort zone. We are doing a little bit more than what is kind of expected from the world, from us. A mother or a father or a Chico Xavier that donates his entire life out of sacrifice, and this word is a little bit charged, but we would have to spend a full hour, more than hours, just to talk about sacrifice. Because when we talk at sacrificing this level that Emmanuel is talking here, to me, what he is actually saying is sacrifice for us to understand. He is using the word for us to understand, because that's what we see. We see Chico Xavier sacrificing. We see what Jesus did as a sacrifice. I don't think that Jesus sees what he did as sacrifice. I don't think that he looks at what he did and says, oh, I sacrificed myself. I think that in this high level of love, that's what it is. That is love. So he shows us that, he tells us that it is sacrifice. Because we tend to think of it as sacrifice. The woman doesn't have what to eat, or she has very little, but out of sacrifice she gives 2 coins that are worth nothing to the temple, but are worth a lot to her. But out of love for the temple, for what the temple does for her, for what the temple does for the community, she goes there and gives it. Out of what? Out of sacrifice? We see it as sacrifice. But when I personally go deep into this idea, I don't see it as sacrifice. I see it as love. Unfortunately, we as human beings, when we meet other people that have no scruples, that have no, they will take advantage of people like this. They can take advantage of people like this. So we have to be aware of it ourselves, and we have to be aware so that we do not fall prey, let's say, of people like this. However, even if we fall prey of a person that's trying to take advantage on me, if I am doing of full heart, the person has a problem. I don't have a problem. Because I am doing because I want to do it, because I feel like it, because I think that it is important for me to do it. So, what Emmanuel says, or finishes saying, is that based off of what we see as the widow's mite, once or when we do it, never stop doing it. All goodness, never stop doing it. It doesn't matter if we don't feel good, if at that moment, do it. If I'm still doing it because I am selfish, or because I am vain, or I want people to see me donating. Do it anyways. We are helping others. If I'm the one who's outside receiving, it might sound bad, or might look bad, but who am I to judge? Let them do it, or let us do it. It doesn't matter if it's crumbs or if it's a lot of money. Doesn't matter if it's mites, if it's like a small offering, or if it's like bags of money. Do it with love. That's what he says. And then, if we do it with love, in that sense, and with sacrifice, that to me is even more love, it increases even more the merit. So, what he's inviting us to do, what Jesus invites us to do when he talks about the widow's mite, is that whatever we do, let's do it out of love. Let's do it because we want, because we see it as important, because we see it as important for others, because we see it as important for us. Sometimes, and I say this a few times, but when we notice that doing the good thing is the best thing for us, let's do it out of selfishness. Let's be selfish. Let's be selfish and do good to others. Because that good that we're doing to others is coming back to me. So even if we are selfish, the best thing to do is to do good to others. So that's basically what, and I hope you guys follow through my thoughts going here and there. But I find this study and this idea of of heaven and hell in this Divine Justice, chapter 8, together with the widow's mite on the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 13, items 5 and 6. These were such a deep match and such a profound, to me, such a profound reflection. It made me think, like, these past 3-4 days, this thing is just like boiling in my head, and hopefully at one point I will let it boil in my heart, because that's actually the goal, right? In the end, is not that we just like understand it, but that we really start feeling it. That we need to keep working on the good deeds, on our good deeds towards ourselves, but also towards the others. So, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being here. And once again, I mean, read the passages. The message on divine justice is really, really interesting. I didn't want to translate the whole thing. I didn't want to read it here, but it is really good, and it's free online. Just Divine Justice, Justiça Divina, chapter 8. You're gonna see the whole message. It is really interesting. So, having said that, let's. I have to say that this weekend, on Saturday, we're gonna have Guilherme Velho. He is a researcher in Brazil. He researches mediumship, and he studies. He has some books about it. To the best of my knowledge, he is not a medium, but he researches mediumship, and he does research on mediums across Brazil. So he already like showed a few mediums that were not real mediums. They were like faking stuff, and he ends up like finding real mediums and showing what the difference is. So he's a very knowledgeable guy in that sense. So he's gonna be here talking about mediumship in general terms. He's gonna like make, as far as I can understand, he's gonna like make a history of mediumship with some facts and some stuff, and then he's gonna be here on Saturday night. It will be in Portuguese, naturally, and on Sunday he's gonna be on two other Spiritist centers, one in one in Westboro, and the other one in Chelmsford, and he's gonna talk about a different topic, about psychography, about what Emmanuel did through Chico Xavier writings, through the and he's gonna talk, and hopefully because he's already traveling around the United States right now doing some lectures in different, so hopefully he will have some books left for us. I don't know if when you start like traveling and showing, people like start buying, and sometimes you don't have books anymore. So, but he will be here on this Saturday. But also this Saturday is our Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving is next week, right? It's there already. It's a year from the last one. It's so quick that it's amazing. So next week is Thanksgiving already. So our Thanksgiving dinner will be this weekend, and so we're gonna have a big dinner here. So you're all invited. Hopefully you can come to not only to see Guilherme but also to see us and to dine with us here tonight. That night, this next Saturday, and I think in the week after that we're gonna have a big surprise. There's another speaker that will come for next week. Hopefully he'll be here too. So by this Saturday we're gonna have a confirmation. Then we will say. But until now, we're just like hoping that everything will be okay. And I think that's it. I don't know if let me wait to see Adriana there. Are we done? Or yes? Perfect timing. Good, good. Adriana, are you coming here to do the prayer, final prayer? No? Come on, come on. It will be higher merit, right? It will be a higher merit, sacrifices, right? Okay, so let's do our final prayer so that we can finish our meeting. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you the ones who were online. Thank you the ones who may watch this in the future and staying here with us. So with this joy in our hearts, the pull that Jesus does in our lives to bring us and to move us forward. It is sometimes hard, it is sometimes heavy, but when we are surrounded by friends, by laughter, by joy, it can make life a little easier. So thank you, God, thank you, Jesus, for allowing us to have friends, to have families, to have a life, a work, to be able to breathe, to drink, to take a shower, to have food, to live where we live, having the opportunity not only to grow materially but also spiritually. And help us see where the need is for us to help, where the need is for our specific way of helping to be able to flourish so that we can do our part in this world. May this love that we feel at this moment, these blessings, this harmony, this joy, be contagious to all the ones that surround us, wherever we walk, whatever we talk, and especially whatever we do and act towards them, towards the world. May them be touched, not by us, but touched by your love, by your light, by your peace. May your love surround us. May your love be always with us. Always. So be it. So that's it for tonight. Are we done, Adriana? Everything? Oh, we're going to have the passes? All right. So I'm going to be there. I'm going to close everything, the transmission, and finish the internet, but there will be passes, and hopefully we'll see each other next Saturday, or if not, next Monday we'll be back in Portuguese with subtitles, or dubbed in Portuguese, right?